2, 3, and. All 5 of you out there. And more rain. More rain.
There's
Love
a
it.
bad echo up here.
And there's more rain coming.
That's because there's not
And
enough
then
people
when it gets done tomorrow, there's more rain coming. And I just hope we don't get into that 1986 episode.
of rain.
Because I'm already starting to see some erosion happening.
Well, just
And,
as long as you don't do something stupid like try to cut a spillway in an earthen dam.
oh, no, well, there's a...
It actually made a spillway now, so it's going to be all right.
But you gotta understand, they made it better.
They had to tear it down to make it
They
better.
had to tear it down to make it better. We've seen videos of buildings that they implode to make bigger buildings, to make better buildings. And I think that's part of the building code. I think that's what I understand about it. And I've actually been at a site when a 36-story building was brought down. And that was really, really something in downtown Nashville, Tennessee when I was living there. And it was it was the Davidson Hotel, and it was just like a half a block from the original Opry Theater, the Ryman Auditorium. And that was a wood structure, 36 stories tall. And it needed to come down. It did. But there was a dust cloud in downtown Nashville for about 8 to 10 hours. You couldn't get downtown, you didn't want to be down there breathing that stuff because it was old plaster dust, and my goodness, you take 30-some stories of plaster, it's a cloud, I mean. So anyway, rain's coming. And Betty came, yeah. Good
Hi,
morning.
Betty, you can start now.
In the middle of the storm, here comes Betty with a big smile.
Praise you through the storm.
Betty is the storm.
Betty is the storm, there you go.
Wish I would have had a story morning.
I don't think she should have heard that, right?
I wish I would have had a storm warning.
We're not doing it again. It wasn't funny the second time.
Yeah. It was good both times. All right, let's ask the Lord to joining us. Father, we thank you so much for the camaraderie we have, the joy in our hearts when we come together, the way we are able to just share and enjoy each other, God. And I thank you and praise you. God, as you come and share with us this morning, Lord, enlighten our lives. Let us see you clearer. Let us know you more intensely. Let us worship you with more of ourselves, Lord. And I just thank you and praise you, God. May your Spirit dwell with us this morning. May we feel it in the building. For all those coming, God, may your blessings be to them, your anointings to them, that their hearts too might be changed a little bit more this morning. And I thank you and I praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Bring your time, bring your shame, bring your guilt, bring your pain. Don't you know that's not your name? You will always be much more to me. Every day I wrestle with the voices that keep telling me I'm not right, but that's alright, 'cause I hear a voice and he calls me redeemed. When others say there's no end to amazing grace. Take me in with your arms spread wide. Take me in like an orphan child. Never let go, never leave my side. I am holding on to you. I am can really, really improve on what we do is if Tom and Ken and I take our shoes and socks off too. I think that would really, really just, we would be the barefoot beauties or something, I don't know, barefoot band, would be the barefoot band.
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone, it's not a joke, I just thought you guys,
in shoes.
No,
I just
I-
can't do it.
I just
I
thought.
do it with socks when it's cold, but I just can't do
Well,
it.
see, I have an inferiority complex about my feet, so,
No one sees my feet back there.
yeah. And I'm just thinking, man, that'd be so nice, it would be like air conditioning to have my shoes off, you know, standing up here and playing. And sometimes you feel a little warm and to have cold feet up there, well, a lot of people have cold feet for the on stage.
Yeah, but it's because of winter. And the pedals are cold.
Yeah. God knows we're here. God knows those things that bring us joy. God knows those things that bring us fear. God knows that if we trust Him, His plan is perfect. And He'll never leave us. Even in the storm of Tuesday night, my wife ran to the basement. I stood in the window and I
I
watched.
didn't run, I walked to the basement with the dogs. There you go.
She fled to the basement.
My brother stood in the window and watched the big tree like cutting down the monster.
Oh, I was hoping to see trees come down. I was watching the popple grow on the north side of our road waiting. I wanted to see something come crashing down. Well, I didn't get to see one, but I'll tell you what, the fury rocking those trees and the amount of foliage it was ripping off those trees, and it was just flying through the air across our fields and across the yard. I could see every current up there in the wind. It was just amazing
I
to
slept,
watch that. Huh?
I slept through.
You slept right through
The
it?
dog's so scared I gave her half a baby aspirin and then I took some melatonin.
Oh,
I was like,
my.
we're sleeping through this.
Zonk, yep. But, and I,
The
For
pine
a
trees all
while-
fell down on Buchanan between 56 and 48. There were 10 great big.
oh, yeah, yeah. For a while as it started, the wind was out of the southwest and I was leaning with my thumbs against the frame of our south windows, the big windows, and I could feel it push the frame a quarter inch, just shaking the glass, the frame and everything.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, there's a lot of force there. I can see why maybe glass would pop, but no, it never did. So it was good.
Thankfully, or he wouldn't be here.
Yes.
He'd
Yeah.
be in there.
Well, I'd have stitches and stitches, and maybe stitches and a little amputation on my left arm or something. Yeah.
I'm just grateful because we drove around, I don't know what day it was, 2 days after or so, we drove around and just looked at Pentwater and the back roads off the Long Bridge and stuff. And I mean, there's a big tree down in the road there, you kind of get around it, but I mean, it was just, even though it looked like there was, trees everywhere and even on a house, it didn't look like there was damage to houses and no injuries, like, I got this feeling that God really protected us because, and it just kind of blew my mind as we drove through everything, seeing all these trees that were down, that there wasn't a lot of damage. Maybe yes, we lost power and all that good stuff, but I just didn't get an idea that it was as devastating to the structure and to people as it was to, like the trees and stuff like that. And it just amazes me just seeing all the trees down and just 15 minutes. We watched the storm for 15 minutes at our house, watching the wind blow, and then it died down, and then it just rained. And 15 minutes of what it can do in each spot. So just, praise for that. Prayers for, there's an elder at my mom's church. He just got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They give him 3 to 6 months to live. It's inoperable apparently. So just prayers for him, and his family, his wife. It's, they're strong people of faith, which is great, but this is going to be a hard ride for whatever God, chooses to happen with them. Prayers for a friend of mine with her marriage, 2 friends actually, they have a lot of struggles and are thinking about leaving their husbands, and I just don't even know what to say to them. I try to be encouraging and just at least that I'll pray and but just need strong prayers for them that something changes in their marriage. And then praise because it does make me
If they would be willing to watch a video with their spouse, we have one that's called Fireproof.
I doubt it. One's in Florida and the other one is up here, but I don't even know if they're talking to each other at this point.
You don't have to talk about them.
Okay.
That's-
Pray for them, please.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you.
I told George that we'd be praying for them. They just have a lot of struggles happening. The church that they were going to, the district closed it. And I guess, well, it's a long story, but his dad is not capable to drive anymore, so, and his mom doesn't drive. So I guess Steve's been called upon to do a lot of running around. Dort's job is moving, or has moved.
Yes, I think, well, I know her boss moved to Virginia, so.
Yeah, so she's kind of up in the air as to where she's gonna be, and
If she gets to stay with Nestle.
Yeah. so there's prayers for them.
Okay. Ken?
Shane had shoulder surgery on Friday. They found a lot more damage than they thought. The MRI didn't show everything, he just had a regular MRI, not the one with contrast. So when he got in there, they found a lot more damage. Just pray for healing. It's going to take at least 6 weeks to heal up enough to where he can start to use it and rehabilitate. So he was told not to move it at all until Dr. Fett tells him to. I hope so. He didn't the last time, and I think he learned his lesson because he tore it up again the last time. That was the other shoulder. So now he's in rough shape.
Okay. Betty?
I guess on that note, medical for both Bob and I'm doing physical therapy on my shoulder. The therapist said it's probably rotator cuff, and he's gonna make it stronger because you're more likely to have surgery. One more thing this year. And then Bob's got this stuff going on, and yeah, he's gonna see the dermatologist in my place instead of me.
Okay.
This year needs to be done.
Almost there.
My younger brother Dennis has been up this week from Florida, and I think he's headed back either today or tomorrow. Came up and I got to visit with him some. It started out kind of rough, then he mellowed out, and I can definitely see the hurt and the grieving that he's still doing over losing his wife this spring. And Jeannie died this spring. A quick rundown, they went down to Fort Lauderdale to go on a dinner cruise in the Intercoastal with a bike club that Dennis belongs to, and they had dinner on the boat, and they came back, and they didn't book dock, and got off, and Jeannie said, I just don't feel right. And next thing Dennis knew, she collapsed in his arms. And she never regained consciousness. They revived her, but she never regained consciousness.
She died in his arms.
Yeah. Basically.
Sorry.
So that was this spring. So Dennis is up here now, and he did sing in the Historical District Friday night last night. He's a band of one. He has got soundtracks that he does karaoke to basically, and then he's got it set up so that he can also play his guitar along with it, so he plays guitar a little bit while he's singing. He's got quite a repertoire of music that he does. So. But anyway, he'll be headed back to Florida.
Driving.
Having a motorcycle or your own vehicle?
He brought 2 motorcycles up in a trailer.
Okay.
He brought yours and then he brought his. But he's taking
You should
yours.
leave mine.
He's taking yours back with him too.
Oh.
Anything else? Okay. Father, we come to you with hearts that are grateful. For number one, for that the damage around here was no worse than it was in the storms, Lord, and that you, there again, you blanket us and you protect us, God. You hold us in the palm of your hand, God, and you have a plan for each of us. As we live out our lives, help us to have that revealed to us more and more day by day, what the plan is that we are supposed to participate in, God. The real reason that we're here as individuals, God, and have a relationship with you and a love for you, Lord. And God, I just thank you and praise you for family, for friends, for community, God. And I just want to lift up, Danielle, this elder at her church that was diagnosed with cancer, God. And I just pray for your hand upon him and for these two friends that have failing marriages, God. Somehow, may the blinders be taken off and a common ground struck between them, Father, that they can possibly do a rebuild and actually find love and find friendship again, Lord. To have somebody that is there to confide and to love. You are the great physician in all things, including relationships, God, so I lift this to you. I thank you and praise you, Lord, for Shane's shoulder surgery, God, and I pray for complete healing, Lord, that he might be able to have full use of the arm, to be able to be more mobile, Father, that he can possibly get out and get back into the workforce, Lord, and enjoy some camaraderie with fellow employees somewhere, Lord. I want to lift up Bob and Betty, Lord, and Betty's physical therapy, Lord. God, that you would just reach down and give her the strength to rebuild muscle and to feel healthier, Lord. And God, for Bob's rash that he carries, Lord, I pray that you would reach down from heaven and just touch him, God. Just as Christ reached out and healed lepers with a touch, may you reach out and heal Bob's rash and with a touch, God. Touch his heart. Help him to feel it. Help him to understand where it came from. Help him to praise you and thank you for it, Lord. And God, I also want to pray for my brother going back to Florida. Give him safe travel. And I pray that the witness that I gave him while he was here may be something that would make a difference, Lord. And for my family, my siblings, I just lift them to you, God. My mother, and ask for your touch upon them all, God. I thank you and praise you for this day. I thank you and praise you for Pastor Bob, and ask for your blessings and your anointing upon him. As he comes to speak this morning, God, make us attentive, open our hearts to be more Christ-like and receiving, Lord. Thank you, praise you, Father, for you alone are good, in Jesus' name. Amen. Yes, Mr.
I enjoyed worship this morning, which doesn't matter. I read that in a Facebook meme this week. I thought it was really good about, well, I wasn't a meme, but it was like a conversation, and somebody went up to the pastor and said, "Pastor, I didn't enjoy worship." And the pastor said, "That's okay, we weren't worshiping you."
Yep, I saw that.
Did you see that one?
Yep.
That's what was his name? Not Jackie Chan. Somebody Chan. It says Francis Chan was the pastor that wrote that. So that was good. So it doesn't matter how many are here. It doesn't matter who's here. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It's where God is here, and that's what worship is all about. So I am privileged to be able to participate in that today. I do want to remind you of a couple of things. September 16th, 2 weeks from today. Do you know what day it is? Friends Day, right, Friend Day or Friends Day. And we want you to invite your friend. We will present a very simple, clear presentation of the gospel, and won't embarrass anybody, won't make anybody come forward, but I will give people a chance to respond and say, you know, I really do want to commit my life to the Lord. So this is a great opportunity to bring somebody who doesn't go to church. I keep telling people that too, don't invite other church people, but sometimes that's hard because you don't know who to invite and who not to. But we will have a cookout afterwards, hamburgers and hot dogs, and we will also dedicate the new fellowship hall. We're going to have a ribbon cutting and a little bit of a ceremony, dedicate, and set up tables and chairs in there and eat.
And spill the first mustard on.
We're going to try to get some mustard on the carpet. Yeah, that's fine. That's what it's there for. I love it when, you know, there's people that have really the right attitude about the buildings.
It's a building.
Yeah, it's a building. And somebody once told me, I love it when the floors are dirty, because that means it's being used. People are here. And so that's a good thing, too. So it means there's kids here when the floors are dirty. So,
Hey, that's not good. I would make unless we're all there eating, so.
yeah.
Crab ball.
So it's September 16th, it's going to be an exciting day. I was going to mention, Randy, that is a week earlier than the schedule I gave you. I planned out the sermons and I gave you the schedule. So switch those 2 Sundays around. It's usually the 4th Sunday of the month, but we moved it to the 3rd Sunday of the month this year. And so that's the 16th. It's 2 weeks from today. And I'm hoping that the Stonekiller group can play the first 2 songs that morning in the 11 o'clock service. You think, ladies, you can be here for that? We love it when you do that because it's real neat, and I love those Alex Woodbury
All the
songs.
songs.
Yeah, well, we might do that.
This is Boy the Night.
That would be different. Yeah, that's all right. It's good. It's Friend Day, and we're allowed to do something different every now and then. So, love those Alex Woodbury songs. Those are really neat. So, good to have you singing those with us.
Tell them to keep writing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I've been
Let's
ready
try
to
another
do
one.
They're both songwriters.
Yeah. Let's do some songs. Let's collaborate.
I've been reading lately.
Yeah, you missed the Alex Woodbury song.
Well, was it last week Danielle did hers?
No,
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, it was right. So, like those songs. This coming Wednesday is the last the Vacation Bible School program. So at 6 o'clock there's picnic, hot dogs, and then 7 o'clock is the program part. So just to let you know what's going on Wednesday night. So it's a really busy week.
So we're not going to meet?
You can meet. I won't be here, but I'll be here, but I can't meet with you. So, if you guys want to meet during the program, so that's good too.
There's a hole downstairs.
And they're serving hot dogs.
Yeah, they're getting hot dogs.
Get
There's
hot dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
It'd be more inviting.
a week from today, next Sunday, I'm going to do a baptism right after the second service. So I just thought I'd let you guys know if you want to be baptized or you know somebody who wants to be baptized, to contact me this week so I can talk to you and let you know what we do and what baptism is about. So I just thought I'd let you know that. This kind of came up because normally we do a baptism on the first Sunday after Labor Day because we're trying to catch some water that's still warm. But it can't
You don't
do.
do the ice bucket
We could
challenge?
try that. That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Need a water slide.
Are you really committed to the Lord? Okay, we'll find out. Yeah.
Need a nice water
You'll be
slide.
born again when you come
You
up.
will. Yeah. You'll trust Jesus, that's for sure. Okay. This week, I want to follow up on what I started last week, the God of all creation, and we talked last week about basically worldviews. The worldview of creation or creationism, the belief that there is a creator God who created the universe, and how that this answers some of the most basic questions of life. You know, even kids ask these questions: why am I here, and where did I come from, and what's this all about? Who made this? And so that's extremely important. I want to follow up on that by talking about worldviews themselves, and what are the possible worldviews that are out there. Jesse, look at the next slide. What is a worldview? Do you know what a worldview is? Why do we call it a worldview? Well, it's the way we see our world, right? It's how we interpret things and how we believe things. It's more than a set of beliefs, although it is. It can be called a philosophy of life, you know, but it comes down to how you act, how you live. Your lifestyle is based on your worldview. And I want to take it a step even deeper and say that basically every worldview is a God view. Because it comes down to one question: what do you believe about God? Because that colors your worldview. That makes your worldview. If you don't know what your worldview is, then ask yourself, well, what do I believe about God? And so, again, I love to simplify things and categorize things and just put everything into three separate ideas. There's really only three God views available. You can't invent another one, because these three will cover everything. The first one is what we talked about last week: the Creator God, who created the universe. And we talked about how even scientific evidence will back you up on that, so you can believe it. But then there's the second worldview that we kind of attacked last week too, the atheistic worldview, that there is no God and it's just all here naturally. But there's a third worldview, or God view, that we didn't touch on, but we'll talk about it this week: the created God. That's different than the Creator God. So I'll tell you about that as we get into it. I'm going to start with Romans chapter 1 this week. Last week we were in Genesis chapter 1, but Romans chapter 1 is an amazing passage that talks about these three worldviews, or three God views, and gives us what are some of the implications or the logical results that come from believing these things. So we're going to start with verse 16, and it's important to start there because this is Paul's jumping off point, where he says, this is my God view. This is my worldview. And he starts off with verse 16 talking about the God who created us and loves us and wants to save us. That's his God view. So verse 16 says, for I am not ashamed of the gospel. See, that's his God view. Because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. First the Jew, then to the Gentile. For the gospel of the righteousness of God is revealed. I love that word revealed. We're going to see that a lot too. Revealed and is seen. It is revealed a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Verse 18, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God, nor gave thanks to him, but in their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings, and birds, and animals, and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. So you kind of have to read it in there, but there are three possible God views or worldviews in this passage when Paul is talking about the truth about God. That was that last verse. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie. So what is the truth about God, or how can you believe in God? Or what do you believe about God? Well, let's start again with the Creator God, although last week we went over it pretty good. Hopefully you got it, and hopefully this is your God view, that you believe in a Creator God who created the universe and who loves us. And you should know who He is, not only by the Scriptures, but Paul says that even if you didn't have a copy of the Scriptures, you should still be able to understand who God is, or at least know that there is a Creator God because of the creation. That's what we talked about a lot last week. You can look at why is there something instead of nothing, and why is there order instead of chaos, and why is there life? Well, there has to be a Creator. That's the only possible logical and even scientific explanation. Jesse, am I on the wrong? There it is. So that's why Paul said, since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities have been clearly seen, and that these things answer the most basic questions of life. Like Veggie tells, it's a meaningful life. How do you get meaning out of life? How do you understand the meaning of existence? Well, you have to know who made you and whose you are. And that's a good question that Randy keeps asking our teens, and I'm glad he's working on it with them, because it's a question we answer all through our lives. Who am I? And the Creator God says, you're mine, and I am yours. Or we could say, I am God's creation, and He is my God. So that gives us the meaning for life and the meaning of existence. And this is really important. We didn't talk about this last week, but the next slide. The same God who created us, a big part of the meaning of existence is found in the nature of God and who He is. Not only who am I, but who is God. And the first thing we see, at least in the revealed Scriptures, is that God is holy, that He is righteous, and that He has stamped that image on all of creation, including us. And He's built into the creation. There's no other way to do it. I say He built it in, but it's just part of who He is. He couldn't have done it any other way. But He built into creation moral laws, as well as scientific laws, as well as physical laws. And what happens when you break a physical law? Yeah, you can't really break a physical law, can you? Has anybody ever broken the law of gravity? You can't. You can't break the law of gravity. You can try it. But who gets broken? Well, you do. If you try to mess with physics, you end up getting hurt. You don't hurt the universe. And so the moral laws in the universe are the same type of thing. That you can try to break a law of God, but you end up breaking yourself. You end up hurting yourself. You don't hurt God. You don't hurt the universe. You end up hurting yourself or somebody else, or your relationships with somebody else, and especially your relationship with God. So a lot of people see this as this is the catch, okay? If you're going to believe in a Creator God, which I talked about last week, that's just logical. It's scientific even to explain why there is the universe. And there's so much meaning in that, who am I and why am I here? The catch is, that means there is some moral accountability that has to take place. Some moral responsibility that is built into this whole creation thing that you can't really escape. And some people want to escape from that. because they don't want to be responsible to a creator God. They would rather do what they want to do. But like I said, you can't really escape from them. You only hurt yourself. So this is what a lot of the secular humanists, the secular scientists that we were talking about last week, when they want to get away from the moral responsibility that comes with a creator God, they simply say, well, there is no God. And I'm going to try to use a little bit of alliteration here so that everything starts with a C. We've got creator God, and we're going to have a careless God. Or maybe carefree, I don't know how to say it. But basically is no God. Or if there is a God, he doesn't care. Isn't that a way that a lot of people see God?
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Even people say, well, I believe, but, he can't love me, or,
Right.
he doesn't love me, or whatever.
He doesn't love me, he doesn't care. And some people will say, well, he obviously doesn't. Didn't give a rip about me because look where I am, look what's happened to me. And that's really an angry agnosticism. That's what agnosticism is. It's the belief that there might be a God, but you don't know for sure. Or if there is a God, he's not involved, he's not near. He doesn't really care about me. He doesn't care about me, and he doesn't care what I do. So there's no moral responsibility either. So there's that part. And again, I don't want to get off on a sidetrack, but I find it fascinating and interesting that people who are angry at God choose not to believe in him.
How can you be a non-believer if you're angry at it?
Right, exactly. Why would you even be angry if you didn't believe in God? Is it just, there's a logic in that says, if you're angry about your life and your existence or what has happened to you, then why are you angry if you don't believe in a God? So there's a lot of that built in there. But then there's the atheists, even the secular humanists. Like I said like last week, that this is what's being taught in our schools, in our universities. It is the official religion of our government. And I call it a religion because you have to have a lot of faith to believe in atheism, because like last week I said, it has become a fundamentalism for them. They'll say, I believe this despite the evidence. And it takes a lot of faith because they desperately want there to be no God, even against this evidence.
That way you don't have to be accountable.
You don't have to be accountable. That is why I believe a lot of people, or this God view, I hate to say it, but I do think it's becoming more and more popular, either an angry agnosticism or just plain atheism. And it just surprises me because how in the world can you really truly maintain that God view? I know that there's desperate people who have tried and will stick to their guns no matter what. But more and more, just your normal everyday person on the street would do this. And I'm not sure, I think I know where it's coming from. I think it's coming from our schools and our universities, for one thing. It just reminds me, and this isn't even in my notes, but it reminds me that last year, Aaron took one of these friend day cards and he invited one of his best friends, a buddy from school. He handed him the card, and the kid looked at that and he said, "Oh, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in God." He threw it on the ground. And wow. I mean, there must have been some anger in that too. I don't know what it was, but it just simply, I refuse to believe. So there was that part of it, but I think it comes from a desperate desire to escape any kind of moral responsibility.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but we had a child come to vacation when I was 2 weeks ago. He was probably upper elementary. And I was passing out the little cards where they can reverse to somebody and get a signature and get their name for a prize. And I tried to make him one, oh, I'm not a Christian. It caught me off guard that he took that stand. He came to church, to Vacation Bible School, but he had to make that statement.
Yeah.
Somebody taught it to him.
Somebody did, or I do think it's becoming more and more a natural result of what we now teach in our schools.
Agnosticism and atheism are both taught.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that you can look around and deny on your own. You have to be taught.
Well, and even you see it with celebrities and stuff, they're like, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, and, you know, you can see all of that too, and how they act, and.
We're coming to that one because that is the third God view. But the second one is just a straight out negation. I deny the existence of God, which is what our schools teach. And the reason behind that, and I'm still convinced of this, is that they just don't want there to be a God. Because if there is, then there has to be some moral responsibility. And so rather than change our standards and behavior, we'll lower our standards like the rat in the cartoon there. What are you going to do? Oh, well, I'm going to lower my standards. Well, that's really what happens. And like these verses say that Paul is just talking about, well, here's the implication, here's what happens when you deny God and deny a creator and deny your moral responsibility, then anything goes, right? Anything you want to do is now legitimate, it's on the table.
It also shows where our society is going, it is going.
Oh, yeah.
The farther we get away from this no God, the farther our society is becoming corrupt and more violent.
Yep. It has to. I mean, there's no reason for it not to if there is no God. If that's the official stance of our government, then why would our governors and politicians practice anything else? You know? And we see it. Even the people we elect, even our president, which drives me nuts. He's just don't get me going on there. Why? The immorality of his character just, where did he get that? And then he claims to be other things, but anyway. But basically it's the idea that I can do whatever I want, I can be as selfish as I want, I can be the center of my own universe, everything Adam and Eve tried to do. I can sleep with whoever I want, I can watch as much pornography as I want, I can indulge in any substance I want, I can treat people any way I want, I can get rid of any inconvenience, especially if it hasn't been born yet. Right? Why not? It's got to be part of it. And that's why Paul says God just will give you over. If you want a universe without God, God will let you have it. But you end up hurting yourself every time. And then there's another catch in this. Not only do you hurt yourself, but here's the catch. This, I think, is the biggest catch to atheism or agnosticism. This moral freedom that you get means that, well, then there's no meaning for existence. If there is no God, then there's no reason. There's no point. Why am I here? Accident. It just happened. There's no existence. There's no reason for your existence. And when you have a God-free worldview and you ask, well, what happens when you die? Nothing. Because you are nothing. You're no different than a plant or an animal. When you die, you just go back to dust. You're nothing. That's all there is, and nothing else. And then that means that human life has no inherent dignity, no value. Why would there be? And so what happens when you teach that to kids?
They, yeah, and they have no respect for other people either.
No respect for other people, or
There's
for
no
human
self-respect.
life, or self-respect.
So, you're tired of all everything around you, you just end it.
Yeah. I mean, suicide becomes a logical outcome. Why? If there's no point to existence, why should I go on existing? So I thought, well, let me check on that. So I did a search on Google and said suicide rates, and I was shocked because the rates have gone up significantly. I shouldn't have been shocked, should I? This is an article, April 22nd of 2016. New York Times says that the U.S. suicide rate surges to a 30-year high. Suicide in the United States is at its highest level in 30 years, with increases in every age group except older adults. This is interesting. The rise was particularly steep for women. It was also substantial among middle-aged Americans, sending a signal of deep anguish from a group whose suicide rates had been stable or falling since the 1950s. I thought, that's weird. You know, I expected like teen suicide would be like spiking, and it is. But middle-aged, too, that's me. I'm a middle-ager, aren't I?
Not anymore, we're
Not beyond the middle age. But it says the older adults beyond our age or up above there, their suicide rate, that was the rate in the 50s that was actually going down and stabilizing. And our rate is going up.
I heard a report the other day, and it made me laugh. I mean, it's very sad, but it made me laugh because the question from I think it was on a newscast, and they said, we just don't understand why there's so much violence in our country.
Violence?
We can't figure it out.
Go
And I
figure.
thought,
Why can't you figure this out?
how hard is this?
Yeah. Well, I looked at this article and I thought, you know, maybe my generation is experiencing this because my generation was the first to go through public school without God. They took prayer out of school in the 60s. In the 40s and even earlier, they took creation out of school and started teaching evolution. They took God out of school. They took the Ten Commandments out of school. And no creation, no prayer, no God, no reason to exist. And I thought, well, that's part of what's going on, I believe. So, I mean, that's a pretty bleak outlook on life, and that's why I think this God view is kind of shocking and scary. But I think the majority of most humans won't fall into that because it is so bleak. There's no reason for it. It doesn't offer anything other than a moral freedom. So what do humans do? They turn to this third option. And this is the one that Danielle was talking about. They exchange the truth of God for a lie, worship and serve creative things instead of the Creator. Basically, they create their own God in their own image. Let's create God in our image instead of the other way around. Let's worship God the way we want to worship Him. Let's be spiritual, but not too spiritual. Let's be worshipful, but not too submissive. Let's worship God of creation by spending Sunday out on a lake. Wait, where's Tom?
Let's be worshipful, but worship ourselves.
Let's worship ourselves. Basically, that's what you're
For
doing.
the people that surround us.
That's what you're doing. You're worshiping the created rather than the creator. And that's why they exchanged the truth about God for this lie. And it is a lie. It's a very ingenious, very creative way to see God. Because, look at the next slide, Jesse. This is what it does. There's no catches. You get the gospel light. Like this. A third less commandments than our original God. And you can pick which commandments you want to follow. There's no catches. I mean, what were the catches? The creator God, oh, there's a catch. There's moral responsibility. Well, how about atheism? No God, moral freedom, but there's a catch. No meaning. But a created God, supposedly, you can find some meaning, some spirituality, some, hey, I feel good about this. And I get to choose how I want to live. Because I can create God in my image, and my God would certainly never punish anybody for sinning. I mean, my God is not mean and not angry. He wouldn't do that. He's the Santa Claus God. He's the old man upstairs. He's the God that is like a grandpa who just winks and he chuckles at everything bad you do and sends you back to your parents or something. That's the kind of God that we create in our own image.
Or there's the whole, sin is defined as this exactly 72 things. Anything other than that is not sin. It's just this specific 72.
And we can decide.
Oh, yeah.
Pick. It's the gospel light. It's a God light, if you want to call it that way.
Everybody makes mistakes, but it's okay.
But it's okay.
And I'm not, as bad as
And I'm
her.
not gonna stop
I
doing
don't
that.
kill anybody, so
It's okay.
I'm all right.
And I'm not as bad as anybody else. And yeah. So, and this is why it's such a difficult or even ingenious lie, is because there's a little bit of truth in it. Because God does forgive. God is love. You can make a mistake and God will forgive you.
He doesn't punish us. We have consequences for our actions. He's not the one that punishes us. We're the ones that do it to ourselves.
Right. And
People don't get that either.
there still is that moral responsibility, whether you know it or not.
I think this is the trend of blind eye. If you
It
can't
is.
see it happening, then it doesn't happen.
Yep. It's really idolatry. Look at the next slide. It's believing what you want to believe about God. Anything you want. You make it up. You decide. It's very individualistic. You worship God on your own terms, however you want to. Except, and here's a little catch, how do you know it's true? I made it up. Well, then how do you know that's the truth? Well, I just feel like that's true. I mean, a lot of people believe this, A lot of people accept this. So, yeah, it's probably true. Well, is that enough to put your eternity on? I like to tell the story about this real old preacher who got on a plane and sat next to a young lady who was obviously very spiritual. She was reading Oprah magazine or something like that. Or, she had the yin-yang symbols and and he said to her, young lady, you must be a very spiritual person. Oh, yes, I am. I'm very spiritual. I'm very much into spirituality. And so you believe in God? Oh yeah, I believe in God. How could you look at creation and not see God? And he said, well, I think about death a lot. What happens after you die? And the young lady said, well, I haven't really thought a lot about that. But I'm pretty sure that when you die, God will take you to heaven or some kind of plane of existence, a very pleasant place, and it's all good things. And, unless you've been really, really bad or killed somebody or something, I think God will do that. And he said, that's amazing, that's wonderful, that's a great understanding. Where did you get that? Did you read that? Did somebody tell you that? I want to know, where did you find that? And she said, well, I just believe it. I just feel like that's true. And, you know, a lot of people believe that. And he said, well, can you be absolutely sure? And she said, well, no, of course not. Nobody can be absolutely sure. He said, well, at my age, I really want to be. And I'm getting up there too, you know. At my age, and it doesn't really matter how old you are, I would rather be absolutely sure of what happens when I die than just go by a feeling. And you can be absolutely sure. That's why we talked about the evidence for Creator God and the evidence for the Bible and for Jesus and the resurrection. The Bible sets itself up to be examined for you to decide, is this the truth? And it's not just your feelings. So, those are the three possible God views. Remember them? Look at the last slide. We'll go over them. A creator God, absolute revealed truth, it's meaningful, and there's moral absolutes. Then there's the careless God. It's I call it a desperate truth because you're desperately hoping that God doesn't exist despite the evidence. But it's meaningless, although there is moral freedom. And then there's the creative God, which I call it the best guess truth. Now, this is my best guess. I made this up. I find my own meaning in life, and I decide my own morality. Only I don't know for sure that it's true. So among those three, I still would rather stick to the first one.
There's a saying out there that I've seen that's something like, I would rather, believe in God and follow God and then find out I'm wrong than not follow God and, find out the truth or something. It's not exact, I can't think of like the exact phrase, but, I'd rather at least if I'm wrong, that's okay. I'm still going to follow him because I'd rather not. And then
that's actually a classic argument for the existence of God.
People have argued, well, if you don't know, then you're still guessing.
Yeah.
And so my answer is when I know. When I don't know.
And I'm absolutely sure.
There's no hope.
Right.
God has given me a promise.
Well, that's why we share what we share. So get ready to bring your friends and friend day. We'll talk about that a little bit more next week too. Let's stand and pray. Lord God, we do thank you for revealing yourself to us, not only in creation, but in your word, through Jesus Christ, and through his life and what he did for us, the cross and the resurrection, all of which we can know for sure. We can verify it historically, we can look at it scientifically, and we know that your word is true. And so help us to stick to that. It is a temptation to design our own God view and believe what we want to believe. But help us to look at your truth and accept that and build our lives on that. And help us to share with those around us. Help us not to be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because it is the power of God for those who are saved by believing. We do live by faith. In Jesus' name. Amen. You're dismissed.